Hello, and welcome to see you here in my DevSecOps tutorial about best practice with JFrog XRay. My name is Sven, and I'm a developer advocate at JFrog. And, well, let's see what we are going to do today. The main agenda for today is the main topic, DevSecOps. So what exactly is DevSecOps? Why DevSecOps is good for your business, and how to achieve true DevSecOps. If you have all this done, we can see a bit what JFrog and DevSecOps is doing for you, and a short demo about JFrog XRay. What is DevSecOps? If you're looking in the internet, especially at Wikipedia, you see that DevOps, the clean DevOps, is more or less mentioned the first time 2009. And since this, we have a lot of discussions and a lot of publications about what is part of DevOps, how DevOps should be implemented and all this. But of all different meanings or opinions, the main thing is that DevOps is something that is going from coding over building, testing, packaging, down to monitoring. So the whole software development lifecycle means from the first line of code you're writing up to the running in production, everything is part of DevOps. The main thing here is that we want to know what is especially the part where we want to put DevSecOps in, or the security. But first, let's see that the DevOps part itself is something that is going on in cycles. So typically you have this 2-week sprints or 3-week sprints. So it means you are defining something, you are developing something, testing something, and the whole cycle up to production. And then you will start again. And it means that DevOps is something that is an ongoing thing. DevSecOps is as well an ongoing thing, but in all these stations, what would be the right place to put the security in? Do I have any opinion about this? Typically, you have this dev and ops part in your production line or inside your company. So a few of your people are more dev guys, so coding, building, testing. If they have done it, they are pushing this, what they produced, for example, over a repository like Artifactory, to the operations. And the operations is then maybe configuring some stuff, maybe testing again some stuff, but then more or less releasing and in production later, monitoring. But with this, you have the dev part in the ops part, and this is not really perfect organization. It means the question here is, what's the right place for the security itself? And do you know if there's one dedicated part where you can put all this stuff in? Some people mention, if you have all security tests done before the performance tests are done, this is not good. Or we have the security audit once in a month, or whatever. So they had dedicated places for the security, and this is not true. That's not good. Is security just a product you can buy? No. Security is not just a product you can buy and everything is done. Security is something more. Will security slow me down? This is quite often mentioned because people say, then we have all this magic in behind, and then I can't really work fast. I have to change something, and then I have to think about the security thing. I have all the security tests. Well, will security slow you down? No. Security is just an additional step, and will cost time and money, and that's it. It will cost some money, mostly. But if you're calculating, if you have a security issue and you have to shut down your production for a few days or weeks, or you're losing customers, or maybe social media is just pushing this news out and saying, hey, there's a big security hole there. I think this is expensive as well. DevSecOps is nothing that can be done just by hiring a DevSecOps engineer. So first you hired a DevOps engineer, and yet now you need just one DevSecOps engineer, and then it's done. No, it's not just hiring people. This is not true. So let's see what we can see here. The answers to all this, what I mentioned, is no. Security is not tested after performance or before something else and then it's done. Security is more or less something ongoing. Just hiring a few DevSecOps engineers is not the right way, because security is more. It's not just one guy that's responsible for security. And with this, I will lose control inside my dev environment. Is this something a developer will say or feel? No, security is not this part that will, make sure. So security is nothing that will control you. It's part of your production line. So over all steps, security is in the beginning more like a culture. It means security first culture, well, this is a hashtag where you can find more information about it, is that in your whole production line, from coding over building up to releasing, configuring and monitoring, security is in every part of this pipeline. There is no dedicated security step. So security is in every of these stages, means that DevSecOps is more like integrating best security practices everywhere. It means from coding, during the time you start coding, during the time you start planning, or during the time you're testing, everywhere is this part security in. It's wise to introduce security as early as possible. If you're just think about the following. Someone is just working on a proof of concept, spending 2 weeks. Then he will discuss his solution with a few other colleagues. Maybe 1 more week is lost or invested. And then it turns out that the whole thing is completely insecure because you're using libraries with security issues, or there is an architectural thing that just will, it's just insecure from the mechanics itself or from the architecture itself. Then you lost already a lot of money. So it means if you are starting with security immediately during the time you start coding or thinking about the new functionality, then you have the best chance to reduce cost and not wasting time and money. Why all this should be good for your business, or why this is good for your business? Let's think about the following. A lot of software developer projects, right now I'm thinking about Java project or the Java ecosystem, but I think in other languages it will be more or less the same. But in Java you have 40 up to 60% of your functionality in your product or in your application based on open source. Or it is open source. It means it's just a dependency. This makes sense because it makes no sense to reinvent the wheel and building everything from scratch. And you should focus on your use cases, not on infrastructure or on sorting algorithms or whatever. So it makes sense to focus on this one. Open source is easy to analyze compared to closed source. If you have closed source software, then you can just look from the outside. But open source stuff, you can really go inside and analyze it. So mostly you will find security things way easier. This is good. So you have a big portion of your product based on open source. It means you have to analyze, or you have to at least know everything about the dependencies you're using. There's one additional thing that is a little bit tricky. Open source means that you have to deal with a lot of license, different license. Some licenses are good for your business, some licenses definitely not good for your business. We have enough examples even with big companies that lost a lot of money, even products, because inside the production lines they were not taking enough care about the compliance issues. So don't use the wrong license somewhere in your project, and check all transitive dependencies as well. Maybe you are right and you are just adding Apache license, but the project team behind one of these dependencies is doing it in the same way, yes, no, or some individual project. So make sure that all transitive dependencies are safe as well. What you need is definitely a speed up inside your production. And this mostly leads to automating things as much as possible so that your developers or your team is not wasting time with boring stuff. One thing that's very important for security and for analyzing things after some stuff happened is that everything must be reproducible. Everything. And with everything, I really mean everything. Not only the input-output value, but even the JDK that is used, the version of the dependency, the operating system version, and so on. One thing that's very important, that you have to kill as early as possible all bugs and compliance issues. So you need something that is integrated inside your production line right from the first step. Security is nothing that what's bad practice? A bad practice would be if something will happen, you should just blame one guy because he's hired for security issues. No, everybody in your team is responsible for it, for compliance as well as security issues. In the same way, they are responsible for the quality, for the performance, and so on. It means all the teams must work very closely together so that you don't have the silos, break them down, and build up transparency. That's the most important thing, transparency everywhere, so that you know what is going on in what part. How to achieve this through DevSecOps? You need people that are security-minded, skilled, trained, whatever, but that they are aware of this issue. There is something with security. And you have to integrate security practices. It's not just done with defining KPI and say, okay, we have the KPI A, B, or C, and now everything is done. No. Best practices means that maybe your production or some part of your production line must be changed. Behaviors, toolings, whatever. Everything should be analyzed. Metrics and goals, they should be shared and accepted by all team members. If you don't have metrics that are understood by everyone, they are not happy with them, and sometimes they're doing just stupid stuff just to fulfill these metrics. And metrics are not fixed forever. If you see that a metric is just not leading to the result you need, change it. Change it and be happy with this. The CI/CD is this is a backbone, not only for DevOps, for DevSecOps as well, because this is a horse you're riding, and this is more or less doing all the boring workload. So speed up the CI/CD pipeline, make sure that this is robust, and implement security there as well. That means optimizing build, scan, and deploy times so that the feedback cycle is as short as possible. The cycle must be fast so that everybody is informed as soon as possible if there's something that must be changed or worked on. Shifting security left means not during testing time, it will start even during your architecture, design, coding phase. And this means we have to work on this tooling as well, so that during the coding time you have everything. Quality. Quality is one thing that is really going hand in hand with security. Why? If you have a very good quality, if you have a very good test coverage, it's easy for you to change versions of a library because there's something detected. You have to upgrade or downgrade a version, and it will enable you to change fast pieces of your code, parts of your architecture, modules, whatever. So quality and security, these two things are really working hand in hand, and if you have a good quality, mostly you are able to implement security with less money. Okay. How to do this? The main thing is you have to understand what's really going on. Really going on means there's something written down in specifications and all this stuff, but don't trust it. Go in and see what's really there, understand it, and know what's really used. So you need this understanding, what's really going on. You need the understanding and the knowledge of what is really used, what is really the tool the people are using, what's really the environment they are working in, not what is the definition of it. If you analyze everything of this, it makes sense to drop all parts that are not needed. Sometimes you have these pipelines and there's stuff in that is just there because in the history it was used, or there was an old decision, or you're just paying license fees for something. Everything you're not using or not really actively using, remove it. Everything what's not there can't be an issue. Hunt and fix. After you removed all parts that are not used inside your pipeline, start hunting and fixing the security issues and compliance issues that are left over. After this is done, monitor everything again, because you never know what's going on. Even if it passes once the security border, maybe tomorrow there is an other view on it. And if you have done this, just start from the beginning. So even here you have this cycle from understanding, knowing, dropping, hunt and fix and monitoring, and again try to understand, because everything is changing and there is a moving world. So just repeat this as well. JFrog and DevSecOps. We have here the picture, what is more or less the platform, the JFrog platform. And you see this code repo is half in, half out, because we don't have our own Git server. But this is the code, and all dependencies, all binaries, all build information should be stored in Artifactory, and Artifactory is a gateway to the outside world. XRay can scan everything that is inside Artifactory. With pipelines or another CI environment, you can start working on code changes, grabbing binaries from Artifactory that are scanned by XRay. XRay can break the build if there's some issue. And if everything is running fine, you can go to the distribution over edges and so on. But the main thing we want to focus here is from code over Artifactory to XRay with, for example, pipelines. Everything can be monitored with this dashboard and the possibility to monitor all these flows and all these informations. This is the mission control. So, XRay itself is a security and artifact analyzing tool. It means everything that's coming in will be checked by XRay, and it will check binaries, artifacts, builds, everything, and try to build up a graph between all components. The scanning is more or less, we're scanning for security issues and for direct and indirect use license. Well, It means if you have a dependency, it will go to all these dependencies and check them as well. And XRay is able to give you follow-up actions. So if anything is found, you can decide and declare if you want to have a notification, if you want to break a build, or if you even want to block downloads like an infected Docker image or some dependencies with security issues. XRay is the only tool that will help you to protect your environment not only during development time, even during production time. Why? We have, first of all, this deep recursive scanning. It means you're working on a product and this is maybe a jar. This jar will be wrapped in a Docker container, and this Docker container is running on a Linux distribution and so on. So if there's something in Artifactory, the Docker image, the jar file, a zip file, whatever, it will be scanned. So XRay is going to every archive, unpacking it, going in, scanning everything. If there's a next archive, just opening this one as well, and so on. So we are really going from top to bottom of all layers. This will be done constantly. So you have these scans and analyzes of all components every time. If you have a change inside the repository, there is a new binary. You have this with a new build. You have the scan with externally triggered. So everything we can do over a REST interface, so or over the UI, so you can trigger it by yourself. Or if we have an update in our security database. So you have different things that are triggering this scan again, and everything inside Artifactory will be just scanned again. As I mentioned before, we have everything available as a REST API. It means we have this UI, this platform UI you see, and you can do everything there. But to automate or to manage it or to connect it to third parties, we're able to do all this stuff over REST APIs as well. And this is, just an easy way to integrate all products from JFrog in an existing infrastructure or connecting external tools to this platform. The main thing is, based on the fact that we are scanning from top to bottom everything and going in every archive of all layers, we have a graph of all components, and so we know if there's one part in this graph is infected, what other parts are infected as well. So we have this impact analyzer or this impact graph that gives us a possibility, even if your stuff is already in production, to give you the information. Now you have a challenge here because there is one thing found in one tiny layer somewhere deep in this system. That's the most important thing. So policies are enabled. Policies enable you to create a set of rules. It means a policy itself is contextless, but we define what should happen. So this policy, if you have a policy, you will add them later to the to watch. What a watch is, I will explain in a few minutes. But a policy is a generic part and rule what should happen. So, for example, check for high security things, and if you find something, then send a mail or break a build or whatever. And this policy has a set of rules. So, and these rules are altogether one policy. The policy is a logical name for a bunch of rules, and every rule is what you defined before. And if you have this one, you have a set of behaviors defined. Then you need to connect these behaviors to resources where you want to apply this behavior on. So a Maven repository, a Docker repository, builds, whatever. So these are watches. Watches will connect these policies with resources. And both together is more or less what you need to apply all your criteria on existing resources. And this will give you the flexibility to define very fine-grained the actions and then dynamically add them to resources you want to scan. With filters, you can filter all this stuff, so this for sure. So if there's a new artifact, he's, for example, one way, so a new artifact is going to Artifactory. This will be scanned by XRay, so the whole graph will be indexed and scanned again, and then you have the policies that are triggered, and with watches you can see what's going on. Okay, let's have a look at the JFrog platform XRay installation. This is here my software as a service instance, but you can have the same as this one on-prem. If you want to try out what I'm showing here right now, I will give you the link for the trials a little bit later. So you can ramp up a trial. It will take approximately 10 minutes or so. And then you have a whole platform installation on a cloud or in a cloud. And then you can try all this by yourself. So if you have your platform, log in and go to the menu point security and compliance. Here we'll have two different menu entries. You have to start with policies because policies are used inside watches. A policy is a stateless definition what should happen if you find something depending on your definitions. I will create now a new policy. You have to define a logical name for this, say policy -demo. If you have to deal with a lot of policies, just think about a naming schema so that this is scaling over the time. First of all, you have to decide if it is something from the area security or license or compliance issues. I will select security. You can add a description, but have in mind that this description must be in sync with all changes you are doing over the time. So I personally just leave it blank here right now. A policy is a composition of rules, and rules is a fine-grained thing. Here, exactly the same like a few seconds before. You need a logical name. Then you can choose what's you can use some predefined levels, or you can define the CVSS score by yourself. I just say grab everything, and now you know how sensitive this should be, this rule. And the next thing is you have to define what is the action that should be triggered, or the thing that should happen. So generate violation, sorry for this. Generate violation is just a thing, or it's just the entry in the web UI. We'll show you in a few minutes. But you can trigger webhooks to integrate with third-party programs or other infrastructure components. You can notify the platform user itself or external ones as well via email if you want. You can block downloads, so XRay is always connected to an Artifactory, and if you want to make sure that infected or affected components are not even inside your repositories, you can just say here block download. If something is unscanned, if you want to block yes, no. The same for release bundles, and the most common thing is failing a build. Yes, I know. This can be used from pipelines and TeamCity and Jenkins, whatever CI you're using. I'm just generating the violation. Now I have this rule inside my policy, and I can just create it now. The next step is creating a watch. Creating a watch means that you are connecting the policies or a policy you created before with the resources you want to have a look at. So I will say new watch. It's the same here, a logical name, watch demo. And now you have to decide what are the resources you want to look at. I'm just selecting a few repositories I have here. For example, I have my Docker. You can filter here, for example. I have my bin tray, my Docker remote, and that's it. So these two repositories are now scanned. That means this watch is connected to this repository, and now I have to say what should happen. I'm just selecting the policies I want to have combined. Here, the policy demo is now associated with this watch, and I can create everything. After this is done, you have this overview here in this menu pane watches, and you can see what are the connected resources, and you can calculate the amount of violations. Here you will have 0 because I just created this watch, and there was no trigger to recalculate everything because there was no change, not inside the repository, no build was triggered, nothing. But you can trigger it manually. For example, just have a look at the last 90 days or whatever you want to define, and then it will start calculate this one. It will take a few seconds, but I've prepared here something a little bit earlier. This one. Oh, let's go back. So if I'm going here to calculate, you will see here you have this 400 and something violations. You can have a detailed list. You can filter this list if you want. You have this one, and then you can just grab one of these items you want to have a look at. You see this small text snip that will give you a short information. You see what's the level, the classification level of this security issue, and what is the resource we found it in. What is the component? Here it's a Debian Buster Docker image, and it's used in my created Docker image that is based on this component, or it's containing this component Debian Buster. If you're clicking here, you will see the impact graph. So it's inside the Debian Buster IP tables binary, inside this Docker layer, inside my image. So some additional information here. The good thing is all of this is available via REST as well. It means if you want to have this information for your reporting system or whatever you want to do with this, or you want to trigger some external other infrastructure parts, you can do this via REST. You can consume this information, or you can just trigger a webhook. So this is the web UI and the core functionality of XRay. And the next thing we want to have a look at is the IDE integration from XRay. Okay, next is the integration inside the IDE. I'm using here IntelliJ, but we have plugins for different other IDEs, for example Eclipse or VS Code. So have a look at the web page and see what version and plugin is available for your IDE. Here for this one I have to install this plugin. It means I'm going to the plugins marketplace, searching for JFrog, and I will find the JFrog plugin. In my case it's already downloaded and installed because I'm using it already. So after you install this plugin, you have the configuration page. In IntelliJ it's under other settings, JFrog XRay configuration. Here you can add the URL, the username and password, and check if you have a connection to your instance. In my case it's an XRay version 3.2.6, and that's it. Now it's available, the functionality is available inside your IDE. For this demo I'm using a Maven, a very easy and small Maven project. The typical workflow is you start adding a dependency. After this, it depends on your IDE, you have to, or your configuration, you have to trigger a reload of this, a reload of the definition. Some people have it activated on default and auto reload. I just do it manually. So now the IDE knows I have this dependency, comes collections with version 3.2, and then I can go to my plugin. Here I have the license info selected, so I see our commons collection. This version is running under Apache license. And I can have a look at the security issues as well. So if this is not available, you can just say sometimes reload, sometimes it's already loaded, sometimes you're doing it manually. And then you can see here the commons collections. There are right now 3 security issues. And the good thing is you can see here as well if there is a fixed version available for every security issue you have. After this, you can decide if you want to have this fixed with an up or downgrade of the version number, or if you are fixing transitive dependencies. For example, I have something with transitive dependencies. Let's see how fast it's today with my internet connection. So I'm selecting just another dependency from a little bit bigger project. I have my Maven reload. This performs just depending on the internet connection you have, and my one is not the best, so it will take a few seconds to get this information. After you got this information, so the IDE was able to load all dependencies, you have the new dependency tree here. It could happen that sometimes you have to say, okay, please ask JFrog now for this new dependency tree you have in your project. It will connect to the XRay instance, and again, it depends a little bit on the internet connection you have. Then you will see here the component tree, the dependency. Here it's Vardin. And if you're clicking inside, you can now navigate through the transitive dependencies. Green, red or orange for the different levels. And if you check here, for example, the Vardin charts with this version is consuming or has a transitive dependency to Jackson core, the Jackson data bind in this version. And the transitive dependencies from Jackson data bind, they are green, so here is no issue. But the Jackson data bind itself has some issues. Here you have the information what is inside, and the good thing is again you see if there are some fixed versions already. Here, for example, for this one we don't have a fixed version until now. So now it's up to you to decide if you want to override the transitive dependencies, if you want to exclude charts because you are not using it, or if you're going to a different Vardin version itself. So really this is project depending, but the whole thing is you have the possibility to navigate the whole dependency tree. That's it. So even if you're just adding a dependency to your project, the good thing is that you are informed immediately if you have some compliance or some security issues. So that's it with the IDE integration. DevSecOps and JFrog XRay. We saw that DevSecOps is not just a tool you're buying and then it's done. It's not just hiring the right people and then it's done. It's more or less like a culture. It's more or less like integrating best practices inside your production line. Inside your production line means that you have to have an eye on the practices as well as the tooling. JFrog itself will help you to speed up the production line with pipelines, for example. It will help you with Artifactory to have a single point of entrance in your network, or if you have an on-prem or high security network, you can do all this without internet connection. An X-ray is connected to Artifactory and will give you the possibility to scan immediately everything that is part or used inside your production line. It could be the dependency in your project, but it could be the Docker image of your CI environment like Jenkins as well. So X-Ray will give you the possibility to scan everything from top to bottom recursively and constantly. Every time we have an update in our security database and we are working with the best sources we can find to have this information as soon and as fast as possible. And after we add it in our database, it is available for you as well. And time is a critical part here. So time is security as well. And we are fast, and we are delivering this immediately to our XRay instance. Everything you saw here is available on cloud or on-prem. So you have the possibility to use it as a service. You have the possibility to install the whole JFrog platform inside your close high security network, or even hybrid solutions are possible. So it's really up to your needs, what you need, and then we can deliver. Thank you so much for listening to my talk. And if you want to know more about this, just follow me on Twitter or write me an email if you have any questions. And so far, thank you for attending.